In this video, I'm going to show you some different ideas for hair options for your sock puppet. So just sitting here in front of us right now are a few finished products. I have kind of a poofy hair made from old produce bags, like onion bags. I have a more conventional yarn style of hair where I've stitched a lot of pieces of yarn onto a backing that can then be attached to a head. And then a couple of quick and easy ones. You can use a pot scrubber or you could also use a bath sponge. So let's get started. We'll start with the yarn approach, which is probably a more conventional approach. You see these on lots of puppets. You can imagine how this would be the bangs for the front, and then it's attached to the top of the head so the hair hangs on both sides. I'm just going to show you how to set this up. The way I do this is I start with just a piece of flat fabric. It doesn't really matter too much what kind you use. This is an old sheet. I just cut a strip of fabric. It's about 2 centimeters wide by about, I would say, 10 centimeters long. It's good to start with it big, and you can make it smaller after you're done doing your sewing on it. You can trim it down to size. I take a piece of cardboard, and this is just from an old Kleenex box, cut apart. I have taken the back part and I've just folded it in half so that when I cut my hair strands, they're all the same length. Now I'm taking my yarn that I have on hand and I'm just going to wrap it around. This is kind of like when you make a pom-pom. You've probably seen this before. Wrapping it around a few times to get the amount of yarn that I want for my hair. Remember, every wrap on the front is a strand of hair, and so is every wrap on the back. So you have double the amount of hair that you think you have when you're just looking at the front side. You can go ahead now and shimmy that off the edge of your cardboard and just kind of hold it with one hand. First cut the yarn with the other, and then go in and cut those loops apart to get your individual strands of hair. They are going to be pretty close in size. You can always trim them down to make them perfect if you wish. Once you've got your hair strands cut, you can start to lay them down centered over top of that backing fabric. And then you're just going to go ahead. I'm not going to do a lot because I'm trying to keep the video short. So I'm just going to go ahead with these few strands of hair. I have my needle threaded ready to go. I'm going to come up from underneath with the knot hidden. And I'm coming through the backing fabric, that's that old sheet, and then pulling straight up into the middle of the yarn. And when I go down, I'm going down through my next strand of yarn. And I'm going to continue in this manner, just catching each strand with a stitch until I have as many strands as I want. If you want your hair to look thicker, you can stack strands on top of each other. You could go through 2 at a time if you want. So I'll throw a second strand on top. I'll go through both of these at once and then through my backing fabric. And you can continue on like this until you have as much hair as you think you want for your puppet. Once you've attached all your strands, flip it over to the wrong side. Doesn't really matter what your stitches look like because they will be hidden when you attach it to the puppet. Go ahead, tie your knot, and you can trim it off. So tying your knot, try not to catch the hair, and hold the knot always close to the base where your thread is, and try to get the knot as close as you can. So you can do that a couple of times, and then once you've got it done, you can go ahead afterwards and you can trim out that extra fabric that was hanging off the back there. If you don't want to add any more hair, you could also trim out the sides. You can just sort of flip up your yarn and just trim off the sides so that they're narrower. Again, they won't show when your hair is falling on top. So just showing you on one side how to do that. And you can continue on. Now you can see this is going to be the hair hanging on each side of my puppet's face. Obviously, to make your hair longer, your cardboard needs to be longer. So you figure out where you want it and just go ahead, fold it the right amount. You could take that cardboard and fold it like that instead. That buys you another 4 or 5 centimeters of length. So you have to decide what length you want. Once that's done, you can add bangs onto the front. It's just basically you know, taking a few shorter pieces and just stitching them on. Same idea as you stitched on the originals. So that's that hair. Put that aside. To make the poofy hair, this is quite an easy little one. You're going to start with some old produce bags. This is from a bag of lemons from the grocery store. This was a bag of onions. So you can, you can mix these up. You can put a few colors together if you have lots of these around the house, or you can keep it simple. To get more hair out of this bag, I just folded it in half. It's a fairly long bag. And then I'm going to fold it in half a second time. So now I've got it bundled up onto itself. Here's where, if you have one of these clips, they're great to use. You can clip the end of it. Or if you don't have a clip, ask somebody in your house to hold this for you. So get somebody to hold that end for you. So find a friend, talk to mom or dad or a brother or sister, and hold that in place while you take some kind of a piece of string. I just have this blue yarn, so I'm going to use it. Go ahead and tie it. Once you've got a knot, pull it pretty tight. You can get rid of this now. You don't need it anymore. Pull really tight and try to do a second knot if you can. Now don't worry about this knob on the end here. I'm going to show you where I have my video showing how all the parts come together. I'll show you how to insert this kind of hair on a puppet without that knobby end showing. So you can leave that yarn in there, and then we can go ahead and we can cut this. And now you can imagine this is quite a stiff mesh, so it's going to stand straight up. If you want to make it a little more floofy, just cut into it down the length, and you're going to end up with this crazy broomstick hair. You could have tied a second bag onto it if you really want to mix up your colors and your textures. This bag again is softer, so feel free to experiment with that one, but that's hairstyle number 2. The last one, probably the easiest, if you have these supplies at home, is just to go ahead and use one of these. You can imagine this could be super, super fluffy hair, really easy to sew onto a sock puppet if you're just linking some of these strands directly onto the sock material. This is a really fun one. It's a pot scrubber. I just picked it up at a drugstore. You can get these obviously anywhere, any supermarket, any dollar store, whatever. The only thing I want to mention about this is because it is wire, make sure that you're using scissors that are not paper scissors. You're not using fabric scissors on this when you cut it, because fabric scissors are for fabric only. They will get really dull if you cut into a thing like this. So you can just go ahead, make some cuts, and cut this in half. It's a little bit of work, but just hammer away at it, get through it. And now you can have some fun fluffing up the underside, making it super tall, crazy curls. You could fluff up the other side. It's fun to pull out those ends. You could make random snips into it to really kind of release some of the wires and really make it into a hairstyle that could be a lot of fun. My only caution, as you can see, there's a lot of little pieces of wire that of course fall off when you cut into this. Once you're done fluffing it up, make sure you do a really good cleanup, because you don't want pets or small children to get into the mess of this wire. So make sure you clean it up, use a vacuum if you can, clean up your supplies when you're done. So those are my 3 quick little samples of hairstyles. Lots more out there on the internet. Take a look, see what you can find. You will see all of these on my finished sock puppets video.